Last October, I spoke to Kathleen Kirby, whose daughter, 19-year-old Audrey Griffin, was brutally murdered on the Central Coast of New South Wales. It was one of the saddest conversations I've had on I Catch Killers. Kathleen spoke about the devastation of losing her daughter in a random act of violence that destroyed lives. The murderer, 53-year-old Adrian Torrens, was a violent, despicable man who had a history of violence against women, and when caught for Audrey's murder, took his own life in prison. Kathleen was not only dealing with the loss of a daughter, but trying to get answers as to why Audrey's death was initially written off as a misadventure, and why Torrens was not in custody at the time of the murder. So, I thought we would check in with Kathleen and see if any of those questions have been answered. Kathleen, thanks for coming back on to the podcast.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for having me once again. It's been a big year.
We've been in touch a lot, and I know the pain that you're going, and it's been 12 months since Audrey was murdered. And how has your life changed from that time?
Oh, look, to be honest, I'm not feeling anything. I'm numb. I'm just, I'm just completely numb. People are saying to me every day how, encourage how strong I've been and, for doing what I'm doing. But I just feel, to be honest, that for me, I can't allow myself to grieve as yet in a way that I probably need to, because what I need to do first is make sure that my daughter has justice for what happened to her. And so for me, I don't want to fall to pieces. I want to keep strong, and I want to keep fighting this to make this a better and safer place as well, for this not to happen again. In regards to just getting through the year, yes, there's been a lot of roller coasters. The family, it's pulled the family. Her friends, a lot of them have had to, have pulled out of uni, and then, kind of trying to find their ways. It's just, it really, really has affected so many people on so many levels,
I don't think people understand the ripple effect when one life is taken, the amount of people that it affects.
Oh, and what support is not out there for them as well. Like under these circumstances, there should have been a lot more support. Once again, we seem to always want to help the ones that, that are not kind of out there trying to better their life. And then you've got all these young girls that are at uni and, doing sports and, and I just feel that there was no support whatsoever for them as well, and their parents are paying, big dollars for them to have counselling and, myself, there's victim support, but that's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. How can I,
Yeah, we were talking about that a month or so ago, weren't we?
Yeah.
That, sometimes the lowest point can be at night time after business hours, and
Correct.
You have no one to call.
Because during the day, I've got Audrey's dog, and I try and get him down to the water. He's the one that pretty much keeps me, getting me out of bed at the moment. I have a lot of days now where I do spend a few days in bed, like I've just kind of got my own place now in Terrigal where I'm landing for a little while so that I can try and, just get on top of all this waiting for the coroner's report to come back and finding out what really did happen. And
Well, that's been the frustration, and I think we did the podcast September.
Yeah.
And it's virtually 12 months to the day that Audrey was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I came away, because we had a lot of conversations before the podcast and after the podcast, and you had a lot of questions that you wanted answers to. And I think at the end of the podcast, and we'll discuss the things, and I want to find out whether you have got answers to them. But I made a commitment to you that I'd at least contact the police and see if I could find answers to that. And we got back, sent a fairly detailed request to the police from the media on the questions that you had, the questions that you wanted answered. And the response that we got back from the police was fairly brief, that as this case will be subject to a coronial inquest, New South Wales Police will not provide further comment. I can see the expression on your face, and frustration, anger, sadness, the whole range of emotions. That's hard to... The inquest, do you know when the inquest is going to be up and running?
No, not at this stage. I have been informed that I did pop my head in because when we did the walk for Audrey from Gosford to Erina Creek, which 200 people showed up all in white once again to support us, I did pop my head in and had a bit of a chat and just said, look, where are we at? Just to let them know that we are doing the walk. This is a peaceful walk.
This was to the police station you popped your head into?
Correct, Gosford Police Station. And just to say, look, we are doing a walk. It's not aggressive, it's not violent, it's light and love for Audrey. And I did ask questions of where it's at, and he said they had actually put it across to the coroner. And that also just pretty much they were saying that they had done, when I questioned, he said to me, we did do our job. And I said, well, if you had done your job, then why was I out there doing what I was doing and, finding phones, door knocking to find out that you hadn't done so? And I said, and why? And even if it was under an investigation, why would they let me, as a mother, come into the station every couple of days saying this is not a misadventure? Why would they let me go through that? Like, why, knowing that I was door knocking, knowing that I was talking to people? Since then, I have caught up with his ex-wife and his mate and had a chat with them because his mate turned around and said that he had some stuff that I needed to know after watching your podcast, the one we last done. And and even to that, I was informed that he was in casino after he murdered Audrey. And now I've found out by speaking to his wife, and she said he wasn't at casino because they were looking for him. Yeah.
Look, Kathleen, I suppose what I learnt as a homicide detective is that there's a lot of information that comes in, and you can call them rumours, and quite often when you go back to the source of it, it's one person telling another person something and it gets passed on and lost in translation. And when you follow up the investigation, you find that there's no substance to that information. That's not making excuses, the reality of it. And I suppose that people who haven't heard the 2 episodes we did where we talked about exactly what happened, if they're listening to this, it's probably a good idea to go back and listen to those 2 episodes. But in summary, Audrey, your daughter, was walking home in the early hours of the morning, and she didn't arrive home. She'd left the hotel. She wasn't drunk. And that's what's been firmly established. Had a whole life ahead of her. She was about to join, or had joined the Navy, and was about to go down and start her training. She was physically active. She was an athlete, a swimmer, and she was found deceased in a waterway that's described as a creek. It's a river type creek. That runs along a road leading from Gosford. How that was written off, and you were told that there was nothing suspicious about it, it's misadventure. So we've got a situation where your daughter's just walking home, not drunk, and has just fallen into a river and drowned.
And been on the phone to her girlfriends all the way home, chatting.
And from that scene, and we won't go into the details, but people can have a listen to the first podcast that we did with you. But her phone wasn't found. She had DNA from the offender, the person who was charged with a murder, under her fingernails.
Yeah, the left index finger.
And I said it on the last podcast, and I say it on this podcast, how the hell did police not treat that as suspicious from the outset?
Well, Gary, can I just say too, I'm still searching. I'm still door knocking, I'm still going down back streets, because when I'd actually spoken to his mate and his wife, and so I know that he went there.
Yep.
After he murdered, so he went to Saratoga.
Yeah.
They told me that he headed back to the station and jumped on the train and headed back. Well, I know he was in Saratoga, and when I also said previous that my girlfriend saw him at the site the following Friday after he took Audrey's life, they denied that. And firstly, they told me when I went to the site when they were doing a replay, I was informed. I walked up to one of the constables and said, look, I'd been informed. My girlfriend's come in to say that he was here at the location. She said, yes, his phone dinged to the location. Then when we obviously had meetings again, we were told, no, it wasn't. He was up at casino. Or that morning, so only about 3 or a couple of weeks back after Christmas, I went and spent Christmas Day with my mum, and just the two of us just hung out at the nursing home. We didn't celebrate Christmas at all. The whole family were just, it just wasn't right this year. But what I wanted to say is that couple of days after I got back, I'd been informed that there was a camera on the opposite side of the road, a couple of feet down, near the mower shop, and it's a massive big camera. So I went and knocked on his door, and the boy that lives there, he works at the Eleanora, and he works there, and he gets home late, and he's a gamer, and he's also he's always on his computer. Yeah. So he said he saw Audrey that morning because his dog, he got home early morning, heard the dogs open the screen, saw Audrey walking, then saw him walking behind. The next morning, the police turned up on his doorstep, and he's got footage of that, which I have now, of them going into his house, picking up the footage of Audrey and him behind her. And then they took the evidence, and then a week later they came back and got some more. The gentleman actually said to me, Kathleen, I was so angry. I gave him footage of him behind her. And I questioned him on that day, why haven't you followed through with that?
So that was the day after?
No, that morning.
That morning, the day of.
Can I just say to Audrey's best friend's father, who actually found Audrey, which didn't come through and tell me earlier, but obviously when we did the podcast, he felt that he needed to come forward and say more. When my friend's father found Audrey's bag, he did go into the water and pick the bag up, where he looked at the identification and identified it was Audrey. The police, he called the police, told everyone not to go into the water or do anything else. When the police turned up, they walked into the water with no gloves, no nothing, picked up all the belongings, not put them in a bag. It was never fenced off the next day. It was never a crime scene.
Well, I think I was comfortable we established that when I spoke to you last time, or the first time on the podcast, and what I looked at it. And after we sat down and spoke, and you challenged me before you even agreed to come on the podcast the first time, that I've got to offer an honest opinion based on my experience as a homicide detective, and I stick to that. And so after we did the podcast, you were preparing documentation for the coroner, the type of thing that you want, and you were giving me a lot of information. We had a lot of conversations, and I broke down sort of 4 points that the questions you've got: the murder of Audrey, the investigation or lack thereof at the initial stages of Audrey's murder, and what happened in the lead up. Why was the person that was charged with Audrey's murder out and about in the first place. And breaking that down, and I made some notes here because I think it's important and I want to be very, very clear on it. Why was Audrey's murder not treated as suspicious from the outset? Can, and if so, when will the police justify what efforts they made to apprehend the person accused of Audrey's murder when he was out on bail committing offences before his alleged murder of Audrey? Is there any failings by police? Will an inquest or an internal police investigation identify these failings and make changes and recommendations as a result? So they're the first 3 points. And on that last one, I think the thing that concerns me about this, people make mistakes. Police make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. That's one thing. But if you don't learn by the mistakes, acknowledge the mistakes, that's where it gets a lot worse. And the fourth point, is there provisions for legal assistance to be provided to the family so their interests are properly represented at the inquest? Now that's an interesting one and one that people don't often think about. But I know, speaking to you, and I've seen this during my career in homicide, people like yourself don't get involved in the criminal world, don't get involved in the justice system, don't have dealings with police. You're good people. That's for the other people. So it's a completely foreign world to you.
Correct.
And some of the questions that you've asked me about what is the purpose of the inquest and that, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked for you that you have no idea what the whole purpose of. So breaking down in the conversations that we've had, the inquest is to determine the cause and manner of a person's death. Now, a person has been charged. I know you don't like mentioning his name, so we won't mention his name again. Mm-hmm. The person that was charged killed himself in prison. You would have potentially got answers when it went to court about what happened. The evidence would have been presented. Once this person has taken his own life, then we got a situation that you haven't got answers, and the answers are what you're looking for. So breaking down those questions, why Audrey's murder was not treated as suspicious from the outset. We talked about the fact that the 19-year-old girl, healthy 19-year-old girl, walking home, has just been found deceased in a waterway beside the road. One thing I was taught in homicide, that you don't treat something as not suspicious until you treat it as suspicious until you can prove otherwise, and that's an important thing. My assessment from what you've told me is that wasn't done, and I'd go as far as to say if you didn't campaign and push police, this very well could have been written off as a misadventure.
I believe, definitely.
That's my interpretation of it. What's...
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Like, you know, they mowed the grass the day after. The council mowed the grass the day after. It was never a crime scene. And, you know, as we said right from the beginning when I said, where's her phone? Everything was just, it's a misadventure. And, you know, it was just so... I mean, you know, those few days were probably not blurry. I mean, I do come in and out. There's things that people are telling me now that I've just realised that my girlfriend and her 2 children, who are pretty much my family, I've been friends with her since I was 2, who practically brought Audrey up with me as well. I only found out last week that they were on the scene and found Audrey as well. You know, like, how do young people go to a station saying there's a location where her friend didn't come home and this is where the location is, and they're all there before the police, and then they go down there, they find the belongings and call the police, and then they walk up, not, you know, like how from day, and then to walk... Even the way one of them walked up to me and the things they said, everything was just right from day dot. It was never, ever, ever treated as a homicide. It was, as far as they were concerned, it was like a young girl walking home. She was probably intoxicated or on drugs and she's fallen in the water, and that was it. They didn't actually look at her as a person, like phone me and go in, okay, what type of person is Audrey? You know, like, give us some information on Audrey. never asked the question. Now, when you thought if they asked all those questions, they would have went alarm bells. She's a triathlon, she's an ocean swimmer, she's going in the Navy. Hey, there has to be more to this. Nothing.
Well, you asked me to be honest and forthright in my opinions before you started dealing with me, and I can tell you, and I'm more than confident I'll argue the point with anyone that wants to argue with me, that should have been treated as a suspicious death right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Right from the start. So many warning signs there. And the protocol for police, because we've given them an opportunity to respond to us, and they've said they don't want to respond until because it's before the inquest, which a date hasn't even been set. But why wasn't that treated as a homicide to start with? Were homicide called? Because the proper protocol is that when a situation like that occurs, local police contact homicide, and an assessment there is, or not an assessment, homicide are in charge of the matter from the outset.
I don't believe so.
These are the type of things that you want answers to. Do I have it correct? Were you told there would be an investigation by police into it, an internal investigation? Was that something that's ever been suggested?
No. As I said right from day one, all I was ever told is that it was a misadventure.
Right. And then after it was shown to be a murder?
Then obviously that wasn't, well, even then, that wasn't until Trevor and I were called into Surrey Hill Police Station, where we had to drive there from our locations. We didn't have anyone come and collect us.
Yeah.
We had to drive there separately because obviously Trevor and I are not together. We get to Surrey Hill Police Station and one of the constables turned around and said, "We've arrested someone for the murder of Audrey." He said to me, "There's support out there with Grace House," which they've been lovely, but as I said, 9 to 5. Nothing. There was no support for us leaving there. There was no one addressing us on how or the procedures of what we needed to do next or how to go about that. Yeah. Or, as I said, we're fish out of water. I've learnt so much. I've had to learn so much.
Are you hoping to get these answers from the inquest? Is this?
I'm really hoping, yes.
And has anyone informed you whether the inquest will look at the actions of the police and whether they could be improved? Because it concerns me greatly that if this is the standard of way a 19-year-old girl found deceased in a waterways is investigated from the outset, surely we need to have a look at protocols or reinforce protocols, or people that have not followed protocols need to be disciplined or re-educated about it, because this just should not happen.
Oh, Gary, look, I do have a lawyer and a barrister that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago that are on the case with me now. They're saying it could be another 2 years before I hear anything. That's why I decided to stay on the coast and just keep hunting and trying to find as much more information while I'm here. That was a little bit of a journey as well, trying to get that all sorted out. But yeah, as I said, look, I feel like, and especially now, I understand people say, after grief and then the funeral and then, the year comes and people get on with their lives and then she's not forgotten. I know that. And I know that she will never be forgotten by her friends and loved ones. But for me, I have a very tight group of people on the coast that have been absolutely amazing. But I'm still alone. I wake up every morning and I'm alone. And they've got their lives and they're all helping where they can because they've all got work to do as well. But for me, as I said, like sometimes I just sit there and I'm like, do they want me to give up? Is this what they're hoping for? Are they hoping that I won't? Because I just feel there's just nothing. It's like, or they've allowed someone out of the system that should never have been out. Audrey was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She didn't know him. As we said, she was out celebrating going into the Navy 2 weeks later. Her life was taken because he committed suicide in prison. the case, obviously, that side of it, I probably would never know. And there's just nothing. There's no follow-up. There's no one. If it's not me ringing, texting, pushing all the time, even in regards, like I was saying, I wanted to, so things are coming fresh every day. There's new stuff coming up. And even yesterday I was, driving into Sydney yesterday, and I thought, all those people that came forward and the witnesses that were with her, like, can I see those? I want to see what they wrote. I want to, those people that were with her in her last moments, they've all been pulled in to have do a statement. And, I want to know. I don't actually know from that night that she left Gosford. I do know a little bit, but I don't know, and I want to know. And I think as a mother, the courteous thing to do is to sit down and tell me. And there's people that know.
Okay. But I see what's happening. It's prolonging your grief, not knowing, and it's just you're caught up in your head spinning, trying to find out what's happened. I spoke to you a previous occasion, and you said to me, would it be normal for people when they give statements to police in an investigation that they get a copy of the statement, and is that statement allowed to be passed around? I said, look, in my practices, if I'm investigating a homicide, it wouldn't be the norm that we would hand out a statement, because it potentially could be passed on to someone and there could be contamination.
Sure.
So I always err on the side of caution to protect the integrity of the investigation. But you explain that to the families, and the families see what's going on. I was taught, and I pass this on, and I'd like to think that people look at it this way as well. I would always say to families, the questions that you're asking, that I can't answer them right now. The reason I can't answer them is because the matter's before the court. I will, at some point in time, sit down with you and go through everything and explain any questions that you have, or answer any questions that you have. Where this situation, I think, is a little bit different is that what's happened after Audrey was found deceased, and the lack of investigation, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed pronto, otherwise it can occur again. And if these are the practices that are across the state, we need to do something so this type of thing can't happen, because someone makes a judgment call that this was misadventure, and then you don't do any follow-up. That's not the way policing should work. But now, for the life of me, I can't see why the police can't sit down with you and go through everything that was being done. It's an inquest. It's not a criminal court that's coming up. It's an inquest. It's a public inquiry into finding out what's happened. I don't see how sitting down with you and explaining some of the things, some of the questions you've got, because you don't know when the inquest is coming up, do you?
That's what I mean. Like this, that's what I mean. Like, even when I went to see him the other day, like, why am I kept in the dark? Like, why is no one telling me anything? Like, I understand that it's got, but as I've been informed, even the inquest, nothing can come of that. All I can do is find out the information, and even then with the coroner, he may decide not to. I don't know. Do I get the opportunity to hear the whole, I've a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, one of the constables actually rang the head lady that's been involved with this from day dot with me to get have an interview and have a chat with her. And I'm like, 12 months later? That some of them were 7 months later. Like, I don't understand.
Well, and with all the emotion floating around in your head, I try to break it down in simple terms. With the inquest, it's cause and manner of the Audrey's death, which is that's understandable. But the coroner does also have powers to look at the way the police responded to the investigation.
They can't action on it though, can they?
They can make recommendations, but recommendations whether they come into place. But on the face of it, what you've told me and the information I've got, and we get nothing back from the police, because all these questions that we're talking about here. That's why I wanted to get the police side of things, and I was hoping that we'd get an answer. But it comes down to we'll not comment because it's subject to a coronial inquest, of which a date hasn't been set. I would have thought there'd be some sort of internal investigation about the situation that happened here, because I just, it doesn't sit right with me. And I see the pain you're going through. Losing your daughter is painful, but when you lost your daughter and you're not getting the answers that you should be getting,
and then this is it, Gary. Like, I will not stop, and this is not even for me about change. You know, as I've said, people say to me all the time, you know, thank you for trying to make a change, or not trying. Thank you for doing this, and you know, you will get change, or you will this, and it's like, but you got to understand first, I cannot get change unless I get justice for Audrey. Change is justice for Audrey, and then there'll be change. I will not stop. I will not stop.
What do you see as justice for Audrey? What would you consider
everyone
justice?
That's accountable? Like, I don't even know if the constables that were involved in the situation, if there was a higher place coming up, someone higher that was telling them not to action on these situations. I'm not pointing the finger. Yeah. I'm just what I'm saying is this wasn't done. Yeah. I've questioned them. I've looked them in the eyes. This was not and they've just looked at me and said, Kathleen, it's a misadventure, over and over and over. And you know, even to the fact after, as I said, when I saw Audrey for the last time, and everything, even the coroner, after seeing her, I feel everything was just put down as a misadventure, because for what I was told, how she was going to look and what they did to her wasn't. Yeah. She hadn't been touched, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I think they wrote it off as a misadventure, and that was.
And this is your thoughts, and I'm offering an opinion based on my expertise as homicide. If it was written off as a misadventure, a mistake has been made. As I've said, we all make mistakes, and I've found you more than reasonable in your attitude towards police. It's not like vindictive. You're just
I've never been nasty. Yeah,
trying to get answers. If mistakes were made, who made that judgment call to write this off as a misadventure, and what's happened to that person? Is that person still, to this day, doing the same thing? And it's concerning. So,
and that's not. And you know, when we talk about mistakes, there's more than one person involved here. So how can they all make a mistake? You know, and when I walk in there and I explain to them after I've been to see Audrey, wouldn't that rattle you to kind of go, yeah, this is this, and all the stories people are saying, the community coming together, like, yeah.
So if there's a problem in the system, if we're not attacking the individuals, we're attacking the process
the system.
And the system, that this could fall through the gaps. There's another, and I consider this more concerning from looking at it, and I've spoken to you about it, that one of the points that we talked about, can police justify the actions they made to locate him when he was breaching his AVOs? Now, he was on a community corrections order from January, I believe, so that was January 2025. When he was charged with Audrey's murder, he was also charged with breaching 11 counts of breaching AVOs, I believe.
And then there was stories of the week before that he was, you know, he'd been on a bender for like 4 days of drugs and alcohol. Like, how is someone able to do that?
Well, my question is, and this is something that I think really needs to be asked, because I think as a nation we're tired of these people that inflicting violence on women out on bail when they shouldn't be on bail. Not questioning the court decision. What I'm questioning, because this is the only area I've got expertise in, is what did the police do when he was breaching those AVOs? Now, some of those breaches, as I understand it, and this is just from the information I've gathered, was via his telephone. How can police say they can't find him when he's using his telephone to commit these offences, making threats on his phone?
Correct.
It's pretty simple. So I would be, and one thing that, and this is in discussions with you, and I try to articulate it into a specific points on what needs to be addressed, is what actions were done to find him when he was breaching the AVOs before Audrey was killed. Now, it's obvious what I'm saying here. If those actions were done, maybe Audrey wouldn't have been that random victim that she became.
Well, even as I said, I caught up with his wife and she said, he was calling me 13 times. I mean, she never reported that.
Well, I heard or read or saw something that she said she got to the point where she didn't bother phoning the police because it happened so many times.
And then how those conversations that she had on his phone, and she said she was blocking him but yet ringing him. When you block a phone, someone can't ring you. So all that, and did the police actually go to her? Did they get her records? Did they see if there was communication? Did they find out if he had a different phone or a different phone number? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all this stuff, it's like, to me, it's, yeah, I just don't think for 1 minute they did any chasing at all.
Well, you asked for my advice and thoughts on it, and I made that commitment. My biggest concern is what efforts were made to locate him. Now, what I'm also saying here is those records are readily obtainable with the police. Like the police, when you do something, you keep in records. So if they've got the records there, they'll be able to show, well, on such and such a date, we did this follow-up, we did this. I would be asking, as you've said to me, and in discussions with your solicitor, where are those records? Have police got those records? Can they demonstrate what they did in an effort to find him before he murdered Audrey?
Well, this is what I'm saying also too, like a simple question. They said to me after he took Audrey's life that he went back to the train station, and what I was told, he had mud on his shoes and he was at the station.
Yeah.
And now on that video clip that I picked up from that gentleman of him walking, he has 24 hours after that, he's not walking past.
Yeah.
So all those questions, were they looking for him at all?
Yeah.
Were they doing anything after they knew that? I mean, they must have known that photo behind him. Like when, as I said to you, when I saw that photo and I said to him, why didn't I see that photo of him walking behind her? And he said, because he was 20 metres, exactly 4 minutes behind, and it was irrelevant.
Well, we've been out to the scene. I know the scene well. I know the location well. And, 4 minutes behind, it's a straight road. And
we did it on Sunday.
Yeah.
We did the walk on Sunday.
So anyone that's in the vicinity and...
The car's going past.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why didn't they stop and, why didn't they straight away get onto all the taxis and the Ubers for like... There was just, and I kept asking, and when I kept saying, I want to see all the footage, they kept saying to me, oh, it's in Sydney. And then 2.5 weeks later, when they finally say to me, yes, you can come in, and that's when I'm sitting at Audrey's site, and I'm sitting there and I see the house and I'm thinking, oh, and I phoned and I said to him, has anybody door knocked? And they went, yes, we've door knocked and spoken. No one's heard anything. They heard something like a dog or something barking. And I had an hour spare, so I went over there and I door knocked. And I said this in the last podcast. As we found out when we sat down at a board meeting with all the big department, that they didn't door knock. They put business cards into the screen door. Yeah. A young girl has been found murdered or found dead at a creek, and it's not the first time it's happened.
Well, that's when an assumption is made, and I've saw it too many times in homicide, when an assumption's made that it's not suspicious, then everything just falls by the wayside.
And I have been told Gosford is a retirement. People come up here to retire. Like, I've heard so much about Gosford, and... like everyone comes up here to retire. It's a country town. And once again, a country town, not much happens up here. Every reason to even more look at that as a homicide, because it's not like it's happening like in Sydney every 2 seconds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and just the fact that I went there time and time and time and time again.
Okay. If it was a situation that, again, without attacking the individuals, if the police are overworked there and they're avoiding things, but breaking it down, what efforts, and I think as Audrey's mum, you're entitled to get these answers sooner rather than later. What efforts were made to locate him when he was out breaching his AVOs prior to him murdering Audrey? Like, I think that's a reasonable question, and it's not a cynical question. We're not trying to cause problems for anyone, but that's an obvious question you as a mother would be asking.
Absolutely.
Why was he out? What information was put before the court in January when he was put on a community corrections order? Was all the information there? And more importantly, if he started breaching AVOs after that point in time, what did police do to find him before he inflicted the damage and took Audrey's life? They're crucial questions that I would like to see answered at the inquest.
Absolutely.
And you have asked me time and time again about what an inquest can do. They're the type of things. Could this death have been prevented? And let's just say, and I'm speaking hypothetically here, so I don't want people to jump on me. Hypothetically, let's just say police didn't do anything to catch him. There's a failing there. We know about domestic violence and all sorts of issues there. If police made no efforts to find him when he was breaching AVOs, there's a failing in the system.
And there's a failing to Trevor and I and everyone that loved Audrey.
And
this is the thing that I wake up every morning when I'm like, how do they just get to release someone? They take, he should have been behind bars. We know that. Release him out on the street. He takes my daughter's life. And that's it. That's it. Like, how is that possible? I understand there's stuff going on in the wars and all over the world, but to actually treat, like, every morning I wake up and when I say I'm alone, because it's just so surreal.
Well, I think as society we've got a responsibility to protect vulnerable people, and a young girl walking home. As a society, we should be judged.
And a good girl.
I'm just blown away.
That's why I can't understand. I'm like, where is the support here?
Yeah.
The support from the community and the people that love, but the system, nothing.
Well,
nothing.
If the system was supporting you, like 12 months down the track, where's this inquest? What priority is being given to the inquest? Have you been updated when it's likely to come ahead? Have the police told you what they've done? Because clearly, and I think we can say this, clearly there were some shortcomings in the initial investigation. It's only speculation. It's only a query. What was done to locate him before he murdered Audrey? But what I will say is the police should have very detailed records on what was actually done to recover him. The failings at the start of the investigation, what's the problem with police actually sitting down and going through all this with you? I don't see how that impacts on an inquest.
Gary, I even received a letter. I received a letter saying that I needed to pick up Audrey's belongings, and I go to Gosford Station, and on the letter it said that if I don't pick it up within the month, then they'll be thrown out pretty much. And I turn up at the station and they're like, nobody knows anything about the letter. Nobody knows where the stuff or whatever. And they were like, we'll get back to you. Haven't heard. Like, so how can they turn around and just send me a letter to say they've got belongings of my daughter and that if I don't pick them up within the month, they'll be dismissed? How does that?
Well, ask me the question. What I think is clearly lacking here is acknowledgement of what this case is about.
Correct.
That's a standard from an exhibit officer or someone have responsibilities for an exhibit, just a standard form that goes out. But really...
Correct. I know that's the case.
Given the circumstances
Absolutely.
of this, the history of this,
a
little bit more care and consideration
Correct.
could be...
That's what I mean. Like, I understand that's a system that went out, but even when I went in there, There was no, oh, we apologise or whatever, but we'll get back to you. And they still haven't got back to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's her phone, her clothing, her shoes, you know.
Has anyone involved in the case been appointed to liaison officer for you? Someone that you can pick the phone up to?
There was originally. Yes, I can pick up and speak to one, but it's only if I pick up the phone to him now. He doesn't call back to me anymore.
If you pick up the phone, and we're speculating here, and say, well, is there an internal investigation into what's happened with Audrey? I'd be interested in what the answer is.
Okay.
You've got the right to ask these questions, and I just want to clarify here. I sound like I'm cranky at the police. I love policing. It's an important job, and there's great people in there, and
Correct.
I'm sure there was great people involved in everything, things to do with Audrey. But if mistakes were made, and when someone's life has been taken,
Correct.
there needs to be accountability.
Absolutely.
And
And this is what I keep saying. It's probably not the people that are on the surface. It's probably from a higher power. I don't know. But for me, I'm not pointing the finger at this stage at anyone. I'm just saying what wasn't done is not acceptable.
Yeah, I think the best way forward for you is you want answers, specific answers to specific questions. Then why was this treated as a misadventure before it was determined to be a homicide? What accountability has there been for the people that made the wrong assessment from the start and treated it as a misadventure? Has there been the internal investigation? Have protocols changed? I think you'd look at that. And I'd be very inquisitive as to what was done in the lead up to Audrey's murder to locate him when he was in breach of his AVOs. Because I think that's where
I need to know, yeah.
That's if the system has broken down, that's where it's broken down big time, and the consequences are devastating in that Audrey's lost her life, that if mistakes were made there. After she was murdered, if mistakes were made in the wrong assessment, that's concerning.
Can I ask you another question too? So he, from what I've been told, is that he actually confessed to what he had done. Why, obviously he's told a couple of people.
Yep.
Why aren't those people made accountable?
Well, there's certain offences that would fit into that category. I can't comment one way or the other. What I can say is there is provisions for offences, aiding and abetting after a murder, different offences that could fit into that category, but it would be a breakdown of the details, the specific details, exactly what was said, what the person did with the information, what was acting on the person's mind, and did that person pass the information on to police when spoken to, so that it wasn't hindering an investigation. But look, these are all the questions that need to be asked, and I know you've been speaking to your solicitor and letters to the coroner. You want answers from the... and I get frustrated with police hiding behind, and I say this, hiding behind it's before a coroner's inquest, because the coroner's inquest can drag on for years, as I've seen in many matters.
How do I get that brought forward? How can I do that? Like, how do I do that?
Well, again, I said I'd give you honest advice. I think I would be writing to the police and saying, what's happening with the inquest? Can you give us a date? Has there been inquiries into how Audrey's initial investigation was treated as a misadventure, or it wasn't an investigation, it was just written off? They could come back and say, okay, we've got to wait till the inquest. Well, then you push up on when's the inquest, and what efforts were made to locate him before Audrey's murder. And that's, I think, they're the questions. And you can also reach out to the coroner's court and make contact with them and say, well, what's the parameters of the inquest going to be? When's it likely to be held? Just to give you some peace of mind, because I know, and when you reached out and spoke to me again, and saying that it's 12 months since Audrey was murdered, and I got the sense you're just on a spinning wheel, just running.
And even when I spoke to the coroners, when we sat down with the coroners,
counsel assisting the cop.
Yeah, and I said to them, well, how, you're telling me this is a couple of years process. They said 2 years, and it's been a year now. I've been told 2 years again.
So you've just lost a year in that. Yeah,
exactly.
Another year.
And now there's another 2 years, they're saying. This is just from the solicitors that I've spoken to. And then I sat there and I went, but how did the Bondi situation get done within 12 months?
Good question.
You know, like Bondi was done within 12 months.
Okay.
Like, you know, how did that happen?
And that they would say, well, the magnitude of what happened at Bondi, and we need to make sure that things are in place so that doesn't happen again. What I'm saying to you, and this is the argument that should be put forward. There's not a person in the country that hasn't been shocked by the amount of domestic-related violence.
Absolutely.
Now, I'd make it clear that the person that murdered Audrey, they weren't in a domestic relationship. But there is a tie-in with domestic violence in that he was out on a community corrections order because of domestic violence and was breaching domestic violence. And my question is, why wasn't this person in custody after those breaches? And if the police can't find him, they can't find him. But what inquiries were done, or what things were done to locate him when he was out committing these offences?
I mean, he got hold of his son. So, you know, there was ways that they must have been able to get in contact with him. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if he had a phone, he was breaching on the phone. They could have found him. I'm certain of that. So these are the questions that you want answered. Now, my argument, if people say, okay, well, it's going to take 2 years, my argument would be, well, hold it. If it takes 2 years, we've learnt nothing. And I respect the role of the coroner, and the coroners do great work and do hand down some very detailed findings. Respect the findings of the coroner. But given the fact that there's some major, potentially, because we don't know until all the facts, and I balance everything I say out here until all the information comes in. I'm getting it from your side of things. We haven't heard from the police. We tried to get it from the police. But the coroner can look at all those situations and address them. Now, delaying they say 2 years, you'll be lucky if it's 3 years because you've already been shown how it can just drag on and drag on. Maybe we need to address this before the inquest. And the police are in the position where they can address it. If there were failings done, they should address it. And I think you're entitled as a mother of a murdered 19-year-old girl to be told that if police have done anything to make sure this type of thing doesn't happen again. Because if there were failings and they haven't been addressed, it doesn't give anyone any confidence, does it? No, God, no. And again, on that side of it, that's what I'm saying. Like in regards to, I know that I have got a massive journey ahead. For the rest of my life, really, isn't it? It's like, people are saying to me all the time, oh, it's too hard, or, you're fighting against the law, you're fighting against this. But to me, I don't see that. I don't see that. I just think if I'm going for the bigger picture, I'm not starting from the little part of it. I'm going from day one. It's like everyone that, from the judge that needs to be adjudged. I mean, that needs to be approached. The police system needs to be approached. All those need to be accountable of what has actually happened here. And no one has. No one's been made accountable. Everyone in life who makes a mistake, as you know, is made accountable. Yeah, well, I always say that you investigate a homicide, you accept the responsibility and the accountability. I have not got a problem with that. And I'm not being a hypocrite sitting here. I stood by that my whole career, and I'll stand by what I did. But I think, okay, if we look at what we hope to achieve by coming on the podcast again, voicing your opinions and getting my thoughts on where there's been failings, and what we're looking for, the end result is that these issues, if they are issues, are addressed sooner rather than later, And it mightn't be a case we can wait for another 2 years, because then that's 3 years. So how many more mistakes have been made in the 3 years?
I mean, the fact that they had a photo of him that day and he was out for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, what did they do there to find him?
Yeah.
Like, he was in Saratoga.
Well, they weren't looking for him because they told
obviously.
you it wasn't suspicious.
But they had a photo of him that morning.
Yeah.
Like, this is what, you know what I mean? Like, before. So, obviously, what they were doing before was nothing, and what they were doing after was nothing. I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
A lot of people in your situation, because you're dealing with all the emotion that comes in with this, and quite often sit down and speak to someone, and you've got a list of questions in your head. You sit down, you want answers, and you walk away, and you're dealing with the emotion and the detail of the information that's provided back. I think the way forward for you is put it down in writing and send it off to the police. And
we've done that.
And have you been getting written responses back?
So in the process, so from day dot, we've got everything written down from the beginning, from the conversations. Everything has been documented. I've got a great teamwork of corporate ladies that have been working with me here, so we've got everything. We're just in the process of also putting a complaint into the actual police department.
Yep.
So that's something else that I'm going to be putting on. I've got a solicitor and a barrister that's working on the case at the moment. But as I said, look, it's still, even when I spoke to them the other day and I was like, how do we get this moving? Like, I just feel like what am I supposed to do for 2 years?
I wish they could understand you're not an adversary. You're not fighting against them. You just want...
I want society. There's so much ugliness out there, so much. And we all need to come together and go, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And I'm not on this journey alone, that there has to be change. There has to be change. And unless everyone gets on board and supports, then we're not going to. And our kids and the younger generation having kids, imagine what it's going to be like every time you turn the telly on. It's educate your children. Get back to the old school, manners and, like...
Yeah.
And this is not just about girls. This is boys too, like boys need to be safe too, as you know, it's not about an agenda. Yeah. It's about anyone, So, and that was Audrey. Audrey never ever for a minute ever judged any sex or, anything whatsoever. She was just such a solid young girl that just had the world at her feet and was thriving,
From what you told me, or what you've told me over the past 12 months or so, that she was an amazing young girl, and she shouldn't be forgotten. Yeah. I hope with all your frustrations trying to get answers, you can put that to a side and grieve and feel the emotion that you need to feel for the loss of your daughter too. That's one battle, and you said at the start you find it hard because you're just focusing on getting answers. You are going to get answers, and keep doing what you're doing. And if people need to be accountable, we'll make them accountable. And what I think, if anyone's trying to fob people off, and I say this, what I've learnt with victims of homicide, the families, they never give up.
No.
They never give up. And it's if people are naively thinking, this will go away if we just don't mention it.
And it's also amazing, Gary, like when you talk to people, you can see straight through them now too.
Yeah,
you know, that's what I'm seeing, like I can see straight through people, you know. I'm just, I can just see when the lies are there or they're not, you know. Yeah, it's just... it's made me very clear of a lot of things, and what I need to do. And I just hope that, I do hope society sits with me and does fight with me, because nobody wants to feel like you have. I was only saying to Audrey's father yesterday, Audrey bought me a Christmas present, one of her Christmas presents that she bought for me. She gave me a ticket for us to go to the zoo together. And she bought her dad a go-kart, at a go-kart. And he was like, oh, it was really strange. She bought me one ticket. I thought I was going on my own, and then I didn't realise she bought us both one. We're both going to go out there. And that's what she was like, you know. And anyway, so he's not up to doing any of the social media or the walks. He's just needs to deal with it his way, and I respect that. But I did say to him, so he didn't come on Sunday, and I did say to him, look, it's 12 months yesterday. Audrey gave me a zoo ticket. Would you spend the day with me? Can we go to the zoo? And he said, of course. So we went to the zoo, and unfortunately they were all asleep, so we didn't get to see anything. But it was really sweet because we get to the gate, and I'd actually lost the ticket that Audrey gave me with all the moving, and just he's lost his too. And we get to the gate, and there's these two gentlemen, one gentleman and a lady, that they were smiling at me as I walked past. And because so many people recognise me now, I wasn't sure if they knew my story. And I smiled and hi, and I was looking for Trevor. And as I turned around, they both walked up to me and went, are you going into the zoo? And I said, yes. And they said, have you bought a ticket? And I said, oh, not as yet. We're just about to go and buy one. And he said, well, I've got VIPs. I would love to give you 2 free tickets. And Trevor and I just looked at each other and got tears in our eyes, and we were just like, oh, you have no idea why we're here today. And so we kind of gave him a short little bit, but just said, look, Google. And they were just like, you know, another 2 that are now wanted to come on our journey and have locked on, you know, and it was just so beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like how everyone just keeps giving, and that's what makes me keep fighting, because the support's been amazing.
Well, I know you will keep fighting. I get that sense. We've spoken enough, and I know you well enough now. And any way that I can help in any way, and we'll tell the story, and we support you, and we might be chatting again down the track. Let's hope we get
hopefully when we get justice,
get some answers.
And get some more answers. Okay. Because as I said, look, you know, I've got nothing else to fight for now. I'm numb. Like it's just, as I said to Trevor yesterday, we were talking about stuff, and I just said it's just hollow. Like life's just hollow. He said, I feel exactly the same. You're like, there's just no emotions, there's no feelings, there's no joy, there's no, so if I can...
Well, I think you're amazing in what you're doing, so hang in there.
She's worth every bit of it.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Gary, again.